The Project Gutenberg ebook of Twilight stories by various artists, produced by David Widger and Charles Keller, for Tina. Read by David Grip. Twilight Stories. Babouscka. If you were a Russian child, you would not want to see Santa Claus come down the chimney, but you would want to stand by the windows and catch a peep at poor Babouscka as she hurries by. Who is Babouscka? Is she Santa Claus's wife? No, indeed. She is only a poor little crooked, wrinkled old woman who comes at Christmas time into everybody's house, who peeps into every cradle, turns back every coverlid, drops a tear on the baby's white pillow, and goes away very, very sorrowful. And not only at Christmas time, but throughout all the cold winter, especially in March, when the wind blows loud and whistles and howls and dies away like a sigh, the Russian children hear the rustling step of the Babouscka. She is always in a hurry. One hears her running fast along the crowded streets and over the quiet country fields. She seems to be out of breath and tired, yet she hurries on. Whom is she trying to overtake? She scarcely looks at the little children as they press their rosy faces against the window pane and whisper to each other, "Is the Babouscka looking for us?" No, she will not stop. Only on Christmas Eve will she come upstairs into the nursery and give each little one a present. You must not think she leaves handsome gifts such as Santa Claus brings for you. She does not bring bicycles to the boys or French dolls to the girls. She does not come in a gay little sleigh down by reindeer, but hobbling along on foot, and she leans on a crutch. She has her old apron filled with candy and cheap toys, and the children all loved her dearly. They watch to see her come, and when one hears a rustling, he cries, "Lo, the Babouscka!" Then all others look, but one mustn't turn one's head very quickly, or she vanishes. I never saw her myself. Best of all, she loves little babies, and often, when the tired mothers sleep, she bends over their cradles, puts her brown, wrinkled face close down to the pillow, and looks very sharply. What is she looking for? Ah, that you can't guess unless you know her sad story. Long, long ago, a great many yesterdays ago, the Babouscka, who was even then an old woman, was busy sweeping her little hut. She lived in the coldest corner of Russia, and she lived alone in a lonely place where 4 wide roads met. These roads were at this time white with snow, for it was winter time. In the summer, when the fields were full of flowers and the air full of sunshine and singing birds, Babouscka's home did not seem so very quiet. But in the winter, with only the snowflakes and the shy snowbirds and the loud wind for company, the little old woman felt very cheerless. But she was a busy old woman, and it was already twilight, and her home but half swept. She felt in a great hurry to finish her work before bedtime. You must know that Babouscka was very poor and could not afford to do her work by candlelight. Presently, down the widest and the loneliest of white roads, there appeared a long train of people coming. They were walking slowly and seemed to be asking each other questions as to which way they should take. As the procession came nearer and finally stopped outside the little hut, Babouscka was frightened at the splendor. There were 3 kings, with crowns on their heads, and the jewels on the kings' breastplates sparkled like sunlight. Their heavy fur cloaks were white with the falling snowflakes, and the queer humpy camels on which they rode looked white as milk in the snowstorm. The harness on the camels was decorated with gold, and plates of silver adorned the saddles. The saddlecloths were of the richest Eastern stuffs, and all the servants had the dark eyes and hair of Eastern people. The slaves carried heavy loads on their backs, and each of the 3 kings carried a present. One carried a beautiful transparent jar, and in the fading light Babouscka could see in it a golden liquid which she knew from its color must be myrrh. Another had in his hand a richly woven bag, and it seemed to be heavy, as indeed it was, for it was full of gold. The third had a stone vase in his hand, and from the rich perfume which filled the snowy air, one could guess the vase to have been filled with incense. Babouscka was terribly frightened, so she hid herself in her hut and let the servants knock a long time at her door before she dared open it and answer their questions as to the road they should take to a faraway town. She had never studied a geography lesson in her life, was old and stupid and scared. She knew the way across the fields to the nearest village, but she knew nothing else of all the wide world full of cities. The servants scolded, but the three kings spoke kindly to her and asked her to accompany them on their journey, that she might show them the way as far as she knew it. They told her, in words so simple that she could not fail to understand, that they had seen a star in the sky and were following it to a little town where a young child lay. The snow was in the sky now, and the star was lost out of sight. "Who is the child?" asked the old woman. "He is a king, and we go to worship him," they answered. "These presents of gold, frankincense, and myrrh are for him. When we find him, we will take the crowns off our head and lay them at his feet. Come with us, Babouscka." What do you suppose? Shouldn't you have thought the poor little woman would have been glad to leave her desolate home on the plains to accompany these kings on their journey? But the foolish woman shook her head. No, the night was dark and cheerless, and her little home was warm and cozy. She looked up into the sky, and the star was nowhere to be seen. Besides, she wanted to put on her hut in order. Perhaps she would be ready to go tomorrow. But the three kings could not wait. So when tomorrow's sun rose, they were far ahead in their journey. It seemed like a dream to poor Babouscka, for even the tracks of the camels' feet were covered by the deep white snow. Everything was the same as usual, and to make sure the night's visitors had not been a fancy, she found her old broom hanging on a peg behind the door where she had put it when the servants knocked. Now that the sun was shining, and she remembered the glitter of the gold and the smell of the sweet gums and myrrh, she had wished she had gone with the travelers. And she thought a great deal about the dear baby the three kings had gone to worship. She had no children of her own. Nobody loved her. Ah, if she had only gone! The more she brooded on the thought, the more miserable she grew, till the very sight of her home became hateful to her. It is a dreadful feeling to realize that one has lost a chance of happiness. There is a feeling called remorse that can gnaw like a sharp little tooth. Babouscka felt this little tooth cut into her heart every time she remembered the visit of the three kings. After a while, the thought of the little child became her first thought at waking and her last at night. One day she shut the door of her house forever and set out on a long journey. She had no hope of overtaking the three kings, but she longed to find the child, that she might love him and worship him. She asked everyone she met, and some people thought her crazy, but others gave her kind answers. Have you perhaps guessed that the young child who the three kings sought was our Lord himself? People told Babouscka how he was born in a manger and many other things which your children have learned long ago. These answers puzzled the old dame mightily. She had but one idea in her ignorant head. The three kings had gone to seek a baby. She would, if not too late, seek him too. She forgot, I am sure, how many long years had gone by. She looked in vain for the Christ child in his manger cradle. She spent all her little savings in toys and candies so as to make friends with little children, that they might not run away when she came hobbling into their nurseries. Now you know for whom she is sadly seeking when she pushes back the bed curtains and bends down over each baby's pillow. Sometimes, when the old grandmother sits nodding by the fire and the bigger children sleep in their beds, old Babouscka comes hobbling into the room and whispers softly, "Is the young child here?" Ah, no. She has come too late, too late. But the little children know her and love her. 2,000 years ago she lost the chance of finding him. Crooked, wrinkled, old, sick, and sorry, she yet lives on, looking into each baby's face, always disappointed, always seeking. Will she find him at last?